Hello and welcome to the Boomer Live. Here we are to talk, of course, about football transfers, and of course, as you all know, that there are a lot of transfers which have been happening across Europe over the last few days, and some major moves which has happened. We did already discuss about few, and but here we are to talk about much more of them and to understand how things stand as of now. But yeah, here we are to talk about it, have an in-depth chat as to how things are panning out at this time for all the European teams. There have been some excellent moves, and there are some teams who have really helped and benefited out of those moves. So here we are to talk about it. But before that, I really want to tell you all that to download our app right now, it's available on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. If you haven't already downloaded it, check it out. The link is in the bio, and you can have absolutely free of cost fantasy experience. And if you would like to predict games, here is an opportunity for you to predict and actually be a winner. So here we're going to talk about it. Let's also have all the chats talk about it, right? Uh, so let's understand what how things stand as of now and how things have been panning out in the last few days and few months over the European transfers. One of the major transfer of the summer has been, of course, Cody Gakpo and how he has really developed himself into that player he has been. Of course, we have to talk about Cody Gakpo and his move to Liverpool FC. Liverpool are jaded at this very point. You have to all understand that Liverpool are undergoing a transition, you can say, in their entire system. You can understand that players are reaching an age where they're looking to give away the mantle. And of course, they were injury hit as well. If you look at the forward line, Bobby Firmino, Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz, everybody is injury hit. So that's not the best times to start off with. But to be honest, I have to give it to everybody that Liverpool needs transition, and that's the fact of the matter. Underlying fact is that Liverpool needs transition. I think that is the first thing. Cody Gakpo's transfer into Liverpool FC is, of course, uh, are going to be discussed as one of the best if he turns out to be a saver like what Luis Diaz was for them last season. But it's still early days. We all understand that Cody Gakpo still has got a long way to go. He's not yet proven himself in the Premier League. Uh, but you never know with Premier League and with these kind of players. Anything can happen anytime. Uh, but I'll tell you one factor among all this, right? The fact is that especially when you are when you're in a team which are contending for top four position at this time, as Liverpool are still not there. Liverpool are still fighting for the top four position. That's primarily because of the fact that they've not been able to get the best of starts this season. Though they won against City, that was one of their best result of this season. But it's still early days to say how far how they might not make it to the top four as such. But looking at things and looking at their performance, they really need a complete revamp in the midfield. I was very surprised with the fact that Liverpool aren't trying out for anybody in the midfield position. We did hear rumors that Jude Bellingham is a possibility, is a possible player who can go into that starting lineup of Liverpool. As we already have a question which asks like Liverpool are in danger spot. Yeah, Liverpool are in danger spot, and it is a fact that uh, Liverpool needs complete change in a lot of phases. It's just not the midfield. They need a backup. Their squad depth is really exposed this season. We saw that happening prior as well. If you guys remember, through the course of that 2021 season, you saw that Liverpool were struggling to qualify into the top four. It was Alisson's that moment of brilliance on the last day which took them over the line into the top four. So Liverpool, when they are faced with injuries, they've been a team who have been susceptible to a lot of issues, and that is a factor with a lot of teams. It's just not Liverpool. There are not a lot of teams are blessed with immense squad depth, and if you have to compete in the English Premier League with the games thick and fast, and you do realize that this season has been one of the most toughest seasons. The fact of the matter is that this season has been tough because of the fact that this season they're unable to the games have come really fast. Not just that, the fact that the World Cup has happened, injuries were supposed to rack up, hence you saw that happening in a larger way. And it's not a surprise for me. It's not a surprise. A lot of teams are facing a lot of injury. It was bound to happen in the season, and hence I'm very surprised that Liverpool haven't really gone out for a player who could bring changes in their squad. And these are minor factors. These are factors which you need to consider, especially if you're competing in a level like Europe, where you have to really compete day in and day out, and in a competition like Premier League or in English football, because you'll have the EFL Cup coming, you have a FA Cup coming, you are going to contend in the Champions League. So these are factors which you have to consider. What on earth really went wrong with Chelsea? I think it's a good time to transition into Chelsea as well, a team which is struggling big time. I think more than Liverpool, it's Chelsea that has really caught all the headlines because of their poor performance this season. Uh, I personally think it's just been one of those seasons where Chelsea haven't been unable, just have really been unable to break free or unable to find a solution for their disarray at this point. I think there are a lot of factors which you need to consider. Number one, management change. When Todd Bowley took over, of course, there were positive signs in the Chelsea camp as to whether this manager can bring in something really good into the side. But also the fact that we need to also give into Chelsea that it wasn't going to be easy for someone like a Graham Potter to come mid-season. Thomas Tuchel's sacking was a shocker for many of us. We know it was not the footballing reasons which got him sacked. It was behind the scenes issues which really got him that sack, which has ultimately resulted in nothing for Chelsea. It has not improved even a bit from where Thomas Tuchel has left, or it's only gotten worse. Losing to Fulham last night was possibly the worst possible result they could have gotten. And we are here to talk about transfer news. So let's talk about Chelsea and how their transfer business so far. As you understand, they've spent close to 400 million this season, where they've really gone out there and splurged a lot of money. They've gotten players. They've gotten players like Fofana, who went out injured. They've gotten now Buddy Ashile, who I think is a very good move. A lot of people, if you have not followed Buddy Ashile, you know that he's a very good ball playing center back. You know what he can really bring into the fold for a team like Liverpool, because, or sorry, like a Chelsea, because the fact is that Buddy Ashile's ball playing ability is a commodity which Chelsea needs, but it'll also will resonate to the fact that does Graham Potter want to fit him into the system right now, or is he just an uh, emergency transfer which they brought in? Is he a long term prospect? Does he really fit into the system? Because Koulibaly has not really been the best player for them this season. If you look at Koulibaly's graph this season, he did well in patches. He's not really gone out there and to set the season on fire like he should have ideally done, because he's coming to this team with a lot of reputations, and that's something which you understand, right? With every player like Koulibaly's reputation who walks into this dressing room would need a lot more leadership acumen, which he should have been bringing into the table, which I thought was not good enough from Koulibaly. When we talk about players like Koulibaly, we also need to give it to them that uh, you know Koulibaly is a player who is now also turning towards 32, 33. And it's not going to be easy for a player like Koulibaly to come into Premier League and light it on fire. We do understand that he's got the ability, he's got the physicality, he's got a lot of traits which fit in right into the Premier League. And he's a very good defender. If you have to take top of 10, 15 defenders in Europe, he'll fit in right there because of his ability to do well time and time again, his ability to really change the course of a match in terms of him coming in and stepping up as a leader. But again, for Chelsea, if you look from the start of the season, one player who's really shown the leadership acumen is, Thiago Silva. We have to give to Thiago Silva again. What he has done is just remarkable with the Chelsea Football Club, and I personally think Thiago Silva is an underrated defender, even at the age of 37. I think he deserves a lot more credit for what he has done with Chelsea in a season where they've been absolutely distorted. Uh, for me, I personally think there is still a lot of room for improvement, especially for players like Mason Mount. And Mason Mount has had a horror season. He's not really had that season where he's really broken it. And I thought this was a season where he really had to prove a statement for himself and for the club, because club really wanted him to perform this season. Because as I already mentioned, for Graham Potter to come in the mid-season just after 5 to 10 games and to really take over and make changes, one player I thought would be catalyst in the system was Mason Mount, and he's really been unable to deliver the goods for them. And it's primarily because of the fact that Mason Mount, you understand that what Mason Mount can do on a good given day, right? Mason Mount has got the creativity. Mason Mount can really go out there and score goals. Mason Mount can be an exemplary number 8 or a number 10 for any team in Europe. But having said that, this season has been awful. If you look at his first stretches, it's not been the best. Like, in terms of the decision making, I think it's been at its worst possible radar at this point. I don't, decision making are things which is a factor of your form, where you're very underconfident in terms of what you really have to do. I think I'll come to the Manchester Derby question now, but before that, addressing on what is wrong with Chelsea, I think Mason Mount really has to step up. I mean, it's about time a player of Mason Mount's expectation. He's also considered as one of the leaders of the team now, because he's already spent close to 3 to 4 seasons with this team. 4 seasons almost with this team. He's had that impact. He's a Champions League winner. Uh, he's done a lot of things right for this team whenever this team has needed him. But this season, he really had to step up, and he's really not turned up for Chelsea so far. And that's gonna be a major issue for him. And now there are reports, and fan bases are really really unhappy that that Mason Mount is not performing well. If you look at the game against Fulham, I will talk about how Felix and the red card, of course. But before that, that game against Fulham, I thought there was a couple of opportunities which how Felix really showed what he can do. He was making those run in behinds. He was getting into position, but Mason Mount's final delivery, no vertical passes. Vertical passes from the Chelsea team has been lacking. Very, very poor creativity there. For someone like Mason Mount, who should be running the play, is really not doing it. He's not the playmaker for this team anymore. He's playing those horizontal passes, which has no progressive results at all. And these are factors which you really need to consider at the end of the day, because if you have to put the ball in the final third, ultimately you need that progressive thinking. You need to really penetrate through, or else you cannot make those chances. If you have to even take a shot, you need the ball in the box, which Chelsea have been unable to do throughout the course. Look at the goal which came yesterday. It came from a set piece, and that's what I personally think. This is where Chelsea really have to improve. From open plays, Chelsea have been struggling massively. I don't think it's the team. There are factors which you need to consider. Chelsea are an injury FC. The injuries have racked up. There is no denying the fact. One only thing which I'll give to Chelsea are their injuries. Look, players like Reece James, players like Fofana, Kante, it's not easy to replace them. Sterling is now out. It's never easy to replace them, and that's where you really feel like players who are in the squad right now. Now let's talk about playing Chalobah at right back in that Carabao Cup game against Manchester City. I thought that was a really bad decision. Uh, I understand Chalobah is a really good talent, but playing him out of position in right back, uh, I thought Sergio Gomez really, really dominated them on that particular flank. That's where I really think Potter's decision making has been a reflection of a lot of pressure which he's under at this point, and that's also something which you need to consider. Potter needs to have a calm head at this point. He needs to recollect. He knows that it can't get any worse. What's the worst possible thing now? Chelsea not ending up in top four. It's almost very very close from that happening. I mean, it's not going to be a miracle if that doesn't happen, or if it's not going to be a miracle if that happens at all. Because the fact is that Chelsea have had a very poor season. We need to consider the fact also that Chelsea's thought processes in game has been extremely poor. Bringing on the substitutes is a very important factor of a game. I thought in the game against City in the Premier League where they bought Chukwuemeka, I thought he was a very good player. I still think there's a lot of potential for him. Invest in him. I mean, I don't know why Chelsea is not doing him. I mean, play him more. But is he the answer to a lot of questions? No, he isn't. Chelsea really needs a number nine. I mean, that's a conundrum which Chelsea have been facing for the longest time now. It's when you talk about Chelsea and the issues with number nine has been everlasting at this point. I mean, they've been unable to find answers. So, what is the way ahead? I mean, is it to bring Memphis Depay from Barcelona for a trade off with Aubameyang? If it is, do it. I mean, Memphis Depay is really unhappy in Barcelona at this point, and Aubameyang really wants to return to Barcelona. So, it's a fair deal for both the parties at this time, even for Chelsea. If they really see Memphis Depay really being the number nine who can fit into that system, maybe he could be. I mean, you already know that Memphis Depay had a horror time in the Premier League last time around. He was there. And Memphis Depay's season so far hasn't been the best. I mean, if you look at his stats with Barcelona, whatever games he's gotten, he's really not put in a performance which says, okay, wow, Memphis Depay needs more starts. Memphis Depay has been a player who's been really are not stepping up to his potential. And that's something which we have been resonating with Memphis Depay throughout the course of his career. If you look at Memphis Depay's graph, and his potential or his ceiling limit was really, really high. But as he reached that ceiling limit, which he could have possibly reached, definitely not. If you remember Memphis Depay in the 2014 World Cup, when he really broke into that scene where people thought, okay, here is a player who can really go out there and do the stuff. But did he do it? He did not. He had a very poor world. He had a really poor time with the Manchester United team, and he went on to get out of the team from there on. From there, it was not the best time, and I thought move to Barca at that point, which Barca wasn't, was definitely a blessing in disguise for Memphis Depay and for Barcelona, because Barcelona needed players, and Barcelona needed players to really fill in the job really quick. But can but did Memphis Depay really go out there and light Barcelona team on fire? I thought I thought Frankie De Jong, not Frankie De Jong, Luke De Jong at times was more impactful than Memphis Depay in that short stint. Even there, when Aubameyang came into the team, he made a larger impact than Memphis Depay. People say Memphis Depay was not playing the right position, but it's been an issue with Memphis Depay has been facing for the longest possible time. Is Memphis Depay the right player to be blamed, or is it the coaches who should be blamed at this point? It's a question which needs to be answered. So I think for Chelsea, I think it's a good deal to bring in Memphis Depay at this point. And how Felix, I mean, I really do not know what to say. I mean, red card on your debut, getting a three-match ban, it's possibly a nightmare of a start. He's only here for 6 months, and he's only going to miss out 1 month of football now. And that's the only thing which I can say. Just bad decision making from how Felix there. I thought there was a lot of immaturity there in terms of him going for that tackle, but it happens. I mean, this is a sport which is it's a contact sport where you see a lot of red cards, and it was a deserving red card as well. But I'm not sure about three-match ban though. But either way, how Felix had a horror start to his Chelsea career, and that's been Chelsea's story so far. It's been a horror start for them in overall. I think we made a video on Graham Potter and Chelsea's worst possible record in last 34 years. He's had the worst possible start for a manager in the last 34 years for Chelsea Football Club, and it's also showing a fact that how Chelsea have really fallen apart this season in terms of a lot of levels. It's the team environment has really been not good. You can see that when the team loses confidence, it's reflected on their performance in terms of their decision making. Very tentative in terms of them in front of the goal. I never seen a Chelsea team play like this in a very long time. And last time I saw that happening was, I think it was in the Mourinho season where Mourinho got sacked when they were almost 15th or 14th in the league, if I remember. So that was the last time I saw Chelsea have that kind of a horror start to the season where they looked absolutely clueless. But here is an opportunity. I don't think it's the right thing to sack Mourinho, but in terms of bringing in acquisitions into the club, I personally think Memphis Depay is not a bad option, and they need a creative midfielder. Enzo Fernandez, I thought it was a good strategy to bring him in, but it just did not work. I don't think bringing in. I think it's time for the day look into other midfielders as well across Europe. Try to bring in a player, maybe a player who can come in and make a difference. I think Awar is not a bad option at all from Lyon. If you're going to bring in someone like Awar into the team, I don't know how well is he going to fit into the Chelsea system, but they need a number eight who can really do that creative job alongside Mason Mount. And Mason Mount needs to be put pressure upon at this point, because Mason Mount, at least if he's going to be benched, he needs to be benched. That's the only way to go ahead. Or else, I personally don't think there's a way out of this complete massacre we are in. Can Arsenal really win the league? I mean, there's a huge possibility. I mean, I think tomorrow's game day is going to be a very important game day in terms of Premier League and in terms of deciding the Premier League, because we already had a question on the Manchester Derby. I think I'll answer that. This is going to be one of the most closely fought in Manchester Derby in a very long time. I think Manchester United has got all the goods in them to defeat the Manchester City team. They're in very good form. Eric Ten Hag has really turned this team around. Now, I think I'll talk about Manchester United first, because I've already had a question like that. So, Werg, Werghorst into the Manchester United team. I think it's a decent move. It's not a bad move at all to get Werghorst in terms of the career he's having at this point. I think it's not a bad move for himself, firstly, and for the club. Is he a starter for you? I personally don't think he's a starter. He's a player who you can bring in the 70th, 60th minute in terms of having that aerial presence inside the box, put those long balls in. Maybe someone like a Luke Shaw or Malacia can put in those long balls, and Dallo can put in those long balls and make use of the advantage of height which Workhorse really carries. I mean, people do talk about Workhorse record in Burnley. I understand that it was an issue, but you also have to understand Burnley really did not have a good season there, and he really did not have support. But here he's got to be really delivered with the right amount of balls, and he's got to be really put in a position where he can be a super sub for them, which I thought Luke De Jong was for the Barcelona team last season. A player from Netherlands, once again, aerial presence in the box, can be clutch in terms of the moments. I'm not specifically mentioning those two goals against Argentina which he scored, but the fact is that when you have an aerial presence in the final minutes of a game, it is massive. It is massive, and that's where you can really break a lot of low block teams who are trying to defend really back against you. That's where you can really expose them in terms of putting those shots in or getting those headers into the at the target. Maybe it might not really work out, but that's okay. He is not your primary starter. He's definitely a good backup. He can be brought in, as I mentioned. Is he a back? Is he the replacement for Ronaldo? I really don't think so. Even if he is, the fact is that Ronaldo did not want to be a bench player. But as at this moment, Workhorse really sees this move as a move which really helps or enhances his career to a larger extent because playing in Besiktas or playing in Manchester United which in an upward climb is a two different factor. And Manchester United is the team that every player wants to play for because the system, the philosophy under Erik Ten Hag has been outstanding. Look at that upward spiral climb. After the start they had against Brentford earlier this season, and Brighton, I really think Manchester United are the most improved team in the Premier League or across Europe at this point. Hence, I believe Manchester Derby is going to be extremely close. I do not know who's going to win, but even if City wins, it's not going to be a thumping win like what you saw in the return leg where they went to Etihad and got trashed 6-3. Even if Manchester City are going to win, Manchester City are going to win a very close game. If something otherwise happens, I'll be very, very surprised. And Manchester United are in a very poor position to win. It's 55-45 game at this point. I'll give slight edge to City because they are also starting to get on a roll. I understand they lost to Southampton, but the fact is that when Manchester City puts a full throttle performance, you know that what they can really bring into the fore. And that's why I believe that it's going to be a very tight competition, 55-45 in favor of Manchester City, but not to rule anything out of this game. It could possibly be also a draw, which is quite likely from tomorrow's scenario. But talking about the Arsenal question now, I personally think this is a possibility. I mean, there's a high chance. I give at least a 60% chance of this happening. I give two reasons for that, right? The way in which Arsenal have really showed that to the world that process is a big factor in football. If you really get the personnel to do the job for a manager, they can really turn it around. And I really give it to the Kroenke family for really trusting in that process and really trusting in Arteta as a manager because he brings in a lot of dynamism into the team. One of the best ball playing teams of the Premier League so far, alongside Manchester City, very similar philosophies shared by both the managers. That's also because of the fact that these two managers were coach and assistant coach previously for the teams they were prior to it. That's also because of that's also an identity which you want to carry on with. I don't mind that. Arteta has done a very good job. Uh, and Arteta has learned quite a lot, and that's something which you have to really give credit to him. The way in which he took over the team when they were a chaotic mess during that COVID time, and winning the FA Cup there, and from there showing signs of improvement. Missed out on the place by a whisker last season, and now being on top of the league with almost taking 5 point lead against the second team is a very good news for them. And I personally think tomorrow's game against Spurs for them is going to be rather very important. Uh, it's going to be a deciding factor, I believe, in a lot of for a lot of reasons. Because if you understand how Spurs have played so far, Spurs have had a decent season so far. They're number 5 in the table, but not to take anything away from them. They've had a season where they've been erratic in terms of the performance. They've come back from conceding a lot of times. That's a good mentality to have as a team. Uh, and that's what I personally think. It's going to be a very tight match. It's not going to be a complete dominance from Arsenal. It's going to be a very tight game because that's something which you get from Antonio Conte as well. So ultimately, if you have to talk about the game in general, I personally think it's going to be a game where it's going to be again. I'm going to give a 60-40 here to Arsenal, but in terms of Arsenal, I personally think they are going to sign a Mudrik at this point, and Mikhail Mudrik is a very good signing. A 70 million for him, I don't think he's that worth. He's a player who's coming from Shakhtar. Of course, the team is undergoing a turmoil because of the issues they are facing back home in Ukraine. But a player definitely who's got immense potential. Is he the player which Arsenal needs? Uh, I still think they should look for a midfielder in the team. I mean, there are a lot of midfielders they can go in for, but the fact is that they need a player who can really control them in case if there's an injury for Jaka. You would need a player to go out there and make a difference on the field. So that's why I personally think Mudrik is a good option. They got back Emil Smith through after a long time. He's back from injury, so that's a positive news for them. I still see Emil Smith Rowe playing a long job for this Arsenal team because he's a player with immense potential as well. You know what Emil Smith Rowe can do. There were also talks about Emil Smith Rowe being the next big thing in English football. It's a normal thing with English football and the media, but the fact is that Emil Smith Rowe, from whatever you've seen of him in the Premier League and from whatever games he's played, he's looked like a player who's almost there as a finished product. And if you give him that time, if you're going to give him enough minutes under the belt, I think he's got immense ceiling limit. And I'm personally very interested in Nketiah's development as well in terms of Arsenal. Uh, at this point, with Gabriel Jesus injured, even there, Arsenal able to pull off those results. Nketiah stepping up. I've been a huge fan of Nketiah so far. I think this team really shows a lot of character, and that's a huge credit to Arteta there. He's really turned it around for this team, and he's turned it around big time for this team so far. And that's why I personally think it's still early days to judge as to who's going to win the league, but Arsenal are in the pole position to win the league. I personally think if Arsenal wins the league, it's going to be great for English football. At least you'll have a different team after City, Liverpool, and Chelsea after the last 6 to 7 years winning a league, and it's going to be very important. I know Leicester City did win it once, between that, but the fact is that it's going to be very different. It's going to be a new champion, which I think is going to be a very refreshing to English football and a dominating performance from Arsenal as well. I think they deserve a spot in the Champions League next season, and I'd love to really see how far this team performs in Europe as well. You know what do you get from this team? This team has got all the credentials to go out there and really dominate the really dominate the European footballing scene for the longest period of time. We've seen that previously with other teams as well. When you talk about team what's in development stage, there are teams who've really gone out there and done well. I've personally been a huge fan of the way in which how Manchester City really developed, or even now Manchester United is developing. But if I have to say the most improved team in the last 5 years or so in terms of the place they were in after Arsene Wenger left and how really Arteta changed it around, I think it's Arsenal in this season. I mean, the kind of football they played is very impressive, and that's something which you have to give credit to him no matter what. Who's going to win the Copa de España? I think very good question once again. Uh, Tight. I mean, I don't know if there's some relevance of this trophy at this point. This point of time in the season, I know it's just a two-game trophy where four teams are involved and you win one match, you're in the final, but it's still a trophy at the end of the day. And you're going to be playing Barcelona. It's going to take, they're going to be extremely confident in terms of if they're going to win this. But for Barcelona, there are a lot of shaky issues at this point. You saw the game against Betis where they got the 2-0 lead and giving it away. Uh, the way they played against Intercity, I thought the game against Atletico Madrid was very good for Barcelona. The defensive performance, it was excellent. Araujo once again, outstanding game for Araujo. But again, I have to mention there are issues with the Barcelona team, especially in the defensive midfield areas. I know Frankie De Jong as a pivot has been an option which Xavi is likely is exploring now, but I'm not pretty sure as to is that the long term option or is that an option which they really have to explore in the coming days. Because if I have to be very honest, I still don't get that assurity from Frank De Jong as a lone pivot. I've been a fan of him, but there's no 100% assurity like Busquets in his prime or like any other defensive midfielder in his prime. Because Frankie De Jong is still a player who likes to advance upfield. There are occasions, especially during transitions, where you will be left open in a number six position, where balls can be played through centrally. It can penetrate through in terms of the transition. I'm very skeptical about that, especially when it comes to Barcelona. But still, there is still more games to play in La Liga. You have the La Liga toppers at this point. That win against Atletico Madrid really helped them. But tomorrow's game against Real Madrid is going to be massive game. Day after tomorrow's rather game against Real Madrid is going to be massive game for this team, because if they get that one, if they get one over Real Madrid, or Real Madrid is going to be normal day in the house. If they're going to really get another Copa de Espada. But the fact is that if they really get one over Real Madrid, I think it's going to really change their fortunes. But Real Madrid are the favorites once again to start off with. You really can't deny, you can't write off a Madrid team in any finals of any competitions. They are the most decorated club in footballing history, and because they know how to win the big moments. Winning 14 Champions Leagues is not a cakewalk. Let's all accept that. Winning 14 Champions Leagues, you have to win 14 times the Champions League, and you have to win it in different situations. They have done it in all different situations. I can understand that European Championship initially the five. You can still debate about it, but in the last one decade, they once again dominated European football in complete limit. I thought winning the triplet was outstanding from any team. They will go down in the history books of the top sporting teams. When you talk about Brazil, when you talk about when you talk about the Bulls in the 90s, you have to talk about Real Madrid from 2014 to 20. That particular team was outstanding. They really dominated European football. It was like a cakewalk for them. It was literally a cakewalk for them in European nights. They knew they could win from any position. And you saw that in the last season of the Champions League as well, how the legacy really rubs off on the next generation. When you're a club of that kind of reputation, when you're a club who really carries that kind of reputation, I really think they've really had it. They've really had a very good season so far in terms of Champions League. In the La Liga, they've really dropped points off late, but I still think there are areas they really have to improve. If you talk about not playing Rodrigo more often, I think that's one criticism which I really will give to Carlo Ancelotti. I think Rodrigo should start more often. Modric, you really see him taper off slightly over the after the World Cup, and it's also because he's really had it, with Real Madrid. Every player comes to that stage in his career where you will taper off in terms of your performance. Similarly, it's been happening with Luka Modric. I can't really uh, give anything away at this point because Luka Modric has been a phenomenal player for this team over the last how many decades. I really can't give it. He's been outstanding for this team, and I personally think at this point, someone like Luka Modric will like to go off maybe at the end of the season. Maybe he might have one more season, but this is the ideal moment for Luka Modric to go off because you know that he is really uh, you know he's got it in him maybe for a few more maybe a couple more years, but has he got it in an elite level where he's getting pressed more often? He's got the ability, there's no denying that fact. But once again, you will see that his body's taking a lot of toll. I think he needs to be rotated more. He needs to be rotated more often. Uh, that's the only way I see things going. Because if Modric is not going to be rotated, I think it's going to be detrimental for this Madrid squad because of his career as well, where he stands in his career, where he stands in terms of where he's positioned himself in terms of his development and a lot of other factors. So I personally think this is an opportunity for Real Madrid to really test out maybe Camavinga more often. I understand that he's not the most preferred option because Chouameni has really earned a name for himself since Casemiro's departure. So that's why I personally think that Jude Bellingham is a possibility to join Real Madrid in the next season, and I think Fernandino Perez will do every single thing to bring Jude Bellingham into this project which he's looking at, which is a complete transition to bring in a player who can do the Modric job or a Cruz job for the next 10 years. And I think there's no player in Europe who's better than Jude Bellingham to do that job. And that's why I think Madrid, talking about Madrid in the Copa de España, they will start as favorites because of all the history they've gotten in terms of finals. Barcelona will really be confident about themselves as well. Other than that, I think one of the biggest transfer I like this transfer was of Daley Blind to Bayern Munich. I thought that was a very good move for Daley Blind and for Bayern Munich as well because Bayern Munich's defensive line looked a little bit shaky in terms of their Bundesliga season, and even I know in the Champions League they were totally not tested. Inter Milan and Barcelona were not even a contest for the Bayern Munich side, but to be fair about how Bayern Munich really stands in terms of their defensive performances, I think they need a left centre back who can maybe be extremely good in terms of ball playing ability, who can actually absorb the pressure, and he's versatile as well. Someone who fits into that Bayern Munich DNA, who can be a defensively versatile player. You have seen that over the years with Alaba, Philip Lahm, Kimmich. So these players have always been a part of the Bayern Munich DNA, and once again, I think he's a very good player to fit into that DNA and system. So this is it possibly it from us in terms of transfer news across Europe, and we've been able to cover almost every major transfer news. I still think we are still early days into the transfer market. We might see a lot more things happen over the next one. We will be back very shortly. We'll talk about cricket maybe in the coming lives, and of course about cricket across the world. There's SA20 happening. ILT20 has kicked off. India has won the series against Sri Lanka, and Pakistan has lost another home series. And this time they've lost New Zealand. So a lot of things to talk about in terms of sporting action. Of course, about Hockey World Cup as well. India has gotten off to a dream start in the Hockey World Cup by defeating Spain as well. So we will cover all of these news in the coming days. I hope you all stay safe, have a good time, all of you, and take care and have a safe time. And I would say download our app once again. Uh, it's absolutely free of cost to play and do play a predictor contest. There's a lot of prize awaiting you in the coming days, so do check it out completely. Bye bye.